A warm welcome to you. Good morning, and this is Talking Point on WESN, the content capital. Today is a very special day indeed. It is the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022, 220222. So, anyway, folks, welcome to the program. I'm Keaton Shaw, and alongside me is my co-host and colleague, my good friend, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And while the world must go on, we do wait with bated breath with regards to what's happening out in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine. War has not broken out just yet, but the levels of aggression or the possibility of war seems to be potentially closer than people thought, because it apparently might have taken the actions of the Russian president to acknowledge rebel factions in certain provinces in eastern Ukraine, acknowledge their independence. It seems to have taken Ukraine at least partially by surprise. However, will it escalate further on what it means for the rest of the world? We've already speculated somewhat. We could continue to offer a few further reasonable speculations, but right now, tensions are high, and it could go in a whole host of different directions. Meanwhile, we ourselves, we do have to worry technically first about what's happening here. And one of the things that we still need to keep an eye on, as much as we like to say that we should reopen further and COVID is hopefully soon to come to an end, people are still at risk of dying. So I will once again put out the call, don't be complacent with regards to this thing, particularly now that it might be ending soon.
Certainly, and later on in the program we will be exploring things post-pandemic. But in the meantime, as Sean mentioned, reopening yesterday, we had a caller on the program. In his contribution, alluded that if schools were to reopen, then Trinidad and Tobago could operate at full extent. That will set the tone for things to go back to a sense of normalcy here in Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the questions you have to ask is, do we have the capabilities and the means to reopen at full extent, and most particularly schools? That may not necessarily be the case. We've often questioned throughout the pandemic, how were they maintaining schools, if they were maintaining schools at all? That question actually yesterday once more came to our thoughts as we learned about the latest in the stories and the trials of the Education Facilities Company Limited, or EFCL. And this morning I was reading the Newsday, and thanks very much to Andy Johnson for sharing this with me this morning, because he said to show you this. It's on the front page of this morning's Newsday, in which a judgment yesterday on behalf of NH International Caribbean Limited, Justice Frank C. Prasad has ordered the already debt-riddled company EFCL to pay $18 million in compensation to the contractor over the termination of the construction of the Parvati Girls Hindu College in Derby. Just to give you some details, EFCL actually did not fight this case in court. That's the first thing that needs to be stipulated. They were not represented by an attorney at law in court, nor did they defend the matter in any way at all. So judgment was given by default. Furthermore, it should also be noted that this court action was only brought forward by NH International in October of last year. NH International wrote to EFCL twice in August of last year. EFCL initially responded asking for more time, but then NH International did not hear anything from EFCL after that. So they took EFCL to court in October. And yesterday, Justice Frank C. Prasad, through default, ordered the payment of $14,074,648.43 left outstanding upon the termination of the contract, as well as interest incurred, which brought it up to just under $18 million. So the companies are already riddled with debt. You have this lawsuit against them, and it's further in debt.
And we know that the government has gone to court in order to essentially contest what they would term bad deals or bad debts, and have won in some of these cases. The Prime Minister was quick to point out the fact that the government has saved the country money, or the government's lawyers, maybe that might be better to say, This was around mid last year. This was at one of, I believe, I could be wrong, his COVID press conferences Saturday, somewhere around the middle of last year after May.
He also quoted that before in relation to the intersection by Curup, the Curup intersection, that takes you from the Eastern Main Road over the highway back to the Southern Main Road over the highway into Carney. And then you also have that intersection taking you from both highways. They remove the traffic lights. So he also stated that what he didn't tell you at that time is that there was also interest from a certain government minister in relation to that land. That's a totally separate matter. But
Right.
throughout his entire tenure, he stated that, we have saved the people of Trinidad and Tobago millions and millions of dollars.
Right, and part of it is he was speaking with regards to, at that time, with regards to the questions about the cars, about the minister's cars and the vehicles. And to be fair, the individual purchases of a minister might not be that big of a deal. I think people need to understand governments deal with money. Hundreds of thousands is small money. Even millions, you could argue, is small money. The problem with EFCL is it's not one situation of millions. It's potentially many situations, many different debts that EFCL has to pay off that could amount to the hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. When you add it all up, it's a significant amount of money that the company itself does not have. And then it comes back to, well, if the company is essentially out of cash that's supposed to be maintaining the schools, what is the current condition of those schools that have yet to be opened? Did we even have the funds and resources to ensure that they were essentially up to scratch to reopen in time for whatever deadline is set? Because this, just a segue, the cathedral in Port of Spain is more or less closed right now because a part of the roof fell down and now they have to go and find the resources to fix that again. Do we want now part of the infrastructure of these schools to potentially be not working, and then children go to the school, they either suffer through a horrible day or, depending on the situation, they get hit. Ceiling might fall, fan might not be working, water might not be running, bathrooms might not be working. So, but then there's the further question with regards to, well, situation of the fact that it was not contested at all.
Exactly. And I'll get into that in a bit, but let me just give you some more details of the contract as reported. First of all, for the Parvati Girls Hindu School in Devi, the construction of that. The contract was worth $127.5 million, and that was agreed to in 2013. The contract payments were made to NH International up until May of 2018. That's when it ceased. Then it was mutually agreed upon between EFCL and NH International to terminate the contract. Upon termination, it's stated that an agreement expressly implied that EFCL would pay NH International immediately on release of funds from the Ministry of Education, the sum of $6.8 million, VAT inclusive, and $5.5 million held in retention, plus VAT of $693,467.12. In fact, sums owed to NH International, that was agreed to be paid no later than September 30th of 2018. September 30th of 2018. Now, go ahead.
No, all I would like to say, and maybe I'm wrong, and I don't know that much about the matter, but I would just like to remind the public that there was another incident where, well, the government opposition to a lawsuit seemed to be somewhat questionable when a private company decided to take a public entity to court. It seemed as though the entity had to defend itself without any real support or directive from cabinet. And now we have a similar situation. And there is technically one man in the government that connects boats, at least on the surface.
Now, well.
And the reason why I bring that up is, I do remember back before the People's Partnership won the election via coalition, that one PNM government was potentially, I'm not saying this is part of the public record, but let's just say accusations were made by one Emile Elias and by one then Member of Parliament, Keith Rowley, that had a significant impact on the then administration standing in the country and potentially in the world, depending on how the rumors went. And it caused a snap election, which caused that party to lose.
Well, Emil Elias received contracts under that government and also received contracts under the People's Partnership government through NH International, and then he's receiving contracts under this government. In fact, one of the major projects he's involved in right now is the Ministry of Health headquarters right around the Savannah here in Port of Spain. But you raise the issue in relation to not even defending it in court.
Yes.
And I don't know if EFCL is just admitting guilt in a sense one time, but at the same time, is it because it is Emil Elias, who is often touted, it's alleged, I can't state for fact, but it's alleged that he is a financier of the People's National Movement Party.
Not just of the People's National Movement Party, I would contend of the Prime Minister specifically, at least at one point.
So is it that EFCL they decided not to defend themselves in court, not to defend this matter, whether or not they said they're guilty, it makes no sense, or is it because it's Emil Elias? Now, another aspect of that, Sean, is that we often talk about how long it takes for a case to get heard in court. He filed this claim in October of last year. Mm-hmm. He's got a hearing 5 months later.
Now, the thing is, EFCL didn't even continue engaging with him. Now, that if you wanted to admit guilt, right, why do you just stop speaking? It could be a situation where they didn't even necessarily know what to do. Now, is it that EFCL's actions was dictated by the Prime Minister? I'm not ready to say that. What I am ready to say, though, is that given the situation that there is a potential prior connection to the plaintiff of the matter, it would have beholden the Prime Minister to do a better job with regards to managing the situation and communicating it. If they weren't going to defend EFCL's position, he should have come out in front and had maybe the education minister or somebody just own up to the situation and explain. But they're trapped. They're trapped in how they've handled EFCL over the last 5 to 6 years.
Well, they are the only ones to blame for that trap, because when they came into office in 2015, initially in 2015, the first PNM administration under the Keith Rowley-led government, they spoke so much about EFCL and about cleaning up corruption, about having to save money. They've actually done nothing to resolve the issues of EFCL.
Not just that. One of the things that was spoken out against then Prime Minister Manning was the apparent corruption in how contracts were awarded. You know, examples were made. I believe Sunwing and, Mr. Hart, a lot of names were thrown out there and accusations and claims. So now you have a situation where I'm not saying that the Prime Minister did anything wrong here. But between how A and V, that arbitration went down, and just how this looks on the surface, it would have been better if things were a little bit more transparent.
He's not going to come out, Sean. He's not going to come out and say it.
I'm not even saying he needs to come out and say it.
No, but the Minister of Education, and this is what we need to understand, the Minister of Education herself is not going to come out and say it. Listen, Anthony Garcia, Minister of Education between 2015 and 2020. Poor example of a Minister of Education.
I'm not going to lie.
Right?
As much as I've had a lack of faith in the Attorney General,
very, very poor example.
He is even lower down on the confidence scale.
But putting that aside, he was supposed to clear up EFCL. He was supposed to sort out that issue. They then put.
I would have guessed at the time, and I would have been proven right. He doesn't have that ability.
They then put Arnold Piggott as chairman of EFCL. There was an entire issue in relation to Arnold Piggott siphoning funds from EFCL. Arnold Piggott resigned. The same thing that they argued for the reasons of EFCL should not continue to operate therein. Their chairman, they appointed, had to resign because of that. Siphoning funds. He was never charged. He was never prosecuted. Let's put that aside. Then we learned in February of last year, in which a company, I think it was GM Transport Limited, actually went with bailiffs and lawyers.
Yes, that's in the current news reports.
And they seized assets from EFCL in order to recoup $1 million owed to them. So they had to auction that off. Then we learned that EFCL staff weren't paid in months. In fact, they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was happening with their positions from what we understand, many of them were asking, let's get our payment and we'll leave, but give us our payment. Many of them were actually afraid to leave because of not being able to get their payment. And then on top of that, we learned that since 2018 or 2019, the operations of EFCL fall under what? MTS. So what are you doing? You're just basically transferring the debt.
So the problem here is not the relationship between NH International and the Prime Minister. The problem is that they have walked themselves into a situation that looks bad because of how they've managed EFCL for the last 6 years. They can't necessarily change direction now and try and be transparent now. Ultimately speaking, that's the issue. The issue, and I suspect that the Prime Minister maybe even asked NH International, because you said the debt was since 2018. That's 4 years. Well, 3 years, give or take, 3.5 years. 3.5 years to 4 years. He probably held off because the situation was so controversial and they probably had no good way to explain what would have happened. So it was a bag of worms. It was a can of worms. They didn't want to go into it, but after 3 to 4 years, 70 million is not a small amount of money. So I can't blame him for that.
What I'm interested in, Sean, and I'm sorry for cutting, what I'm interested in is this judgment on behalf, because again, I find it's amazing that this judgment was laid 5 months after it was first brought to court.
I mean,
and EFCL didn't fund it.
That is a specific question that should be asked.
I find that amazing. What I'm curious to know is that this particular contractor, now that judgment has been laid, when is he going to get payment? How soon is he going to get payment?
That's the other side of the
coin. And how
does
that reflect of EFCL not being able to pay other contractors? In fact, other contractors now going to take a lesson out of this judgment and take EFCL to court, get judgment. How long is it going to take before they receive their funds? I think now that it's stated that they have to pay Emily Elias and NH International $17 million, $18 million, that it should also be stated when he receives payment. I would love to know, simply because of the individual and the company involved.
The other thing that we have to ask is exactly what happened for EFCL to financially collapse in such a way? What was the mechanism that money was appropriated to it? Why did that fall apart? How is MTS being financed? Because MTS is now, as far as I'm aware, taking up the reoccurring costs of maintaining the schools. So is that cash flow safe?
No.
Or do we have potentially, there's the potential of what happened to EFCL happening in that corner of MTS all over again? Because the budget's not going to be small.
From what I understand, it seems as though it is already happening. I'll tell you why. First of all, they transferred the operations of EFCL to MTS. So it seems as though that was a solution. You know, we'll keep the entity EFCL there. I don't know why
not
they're
even
keeping
officially
the entity
dealing
exactly.
with EFCL.
So we're keeping the entity and the shell of EFCL, but the operations and the management of EFCL transfers across to MTS, whatever their responsibilities were. Fine, fair enough.
Not the staff.
Great, not the staff, right? MTS now gets it. How this works, at least from what I understand, is that the ministry would have approached EFCL before, and what is applicable to EFCL is also applicable to MTS in this case. So the Ministry of Education would approach the special purpose company and say, this is the work we want to get done. EFCL will be like, okay, fine. EFCL then goes and tenders for the contracts. They get the contracts. And how EFCL operates, how they survive or sustain themselves is basically they will get a percentage of each contract in order to pay staff, in order to pay all their expenses. That's basically how it works, right? But the ministry was never giving them those funds. So they were getting a fraction of the percentage.
I mean,
so they were incurring debt.
That arrangement already seems like a bad idea to give a special purpose company a financial incentive.
So not only are they not able to pay off contractors monies that are owed and monies that are promised, they're also able to sustain themselves because they weren't getting what was due to them.
I would like to maybe throw in a wrench in that. The money that they weren't getting from the ministry, wouldn't some of that money that they did not receive be some of the money or all of the money that was appropriated by, allegedly, by those who siphon funds away from the company?
There you go. There you go. So that's one thing as well. So that's to bear in mind, because what's interesting in that sense is that we haven't heard anything about that since then, have we? So then adding to that, MTS is operating that same way, where MTS is now taking, guidance from the
Taking the
ministry.
requests and tendering
we're taking
contracts.
it, we're giving out the contracts, but from what I understand, MTS is now incurring debt because of that. So MTS, which was supposed to be supposedly the solution to EFCL, is now what? Turning into another EFCL?
So now the question we have to ask is, why is the Ministry of Education requesting services, maintenance work, construction work, and not willing to pay the money for that work?
So let me...
I mean, that's literally, you are literally stealing from somebody.
So another interesting thing, and this is actually minor.
That's theft by government, Keaton.
This is, well, what's new? What's new?
No. Usually it's politicians stealing from the treasury. This is the government stealing from contractors. And even their own special purpose company.
I will not go as far as to say that
That's
as yes.
essentially or basically what it is.
Because that's a
you
criminal...
are not paying for services rendered.
I'm not, but anyway. So, we're trying to figure out
hold on.
exactly...
Notice. They're not suing the Ministry of Education. They're suing EFCL.
Well, they have to. That's
But it's,
the
it's the Ministry of Education that's supposed to provide the liquid finances to pay the contracts.
They're providing it to EFCL. EFCL
Right.
is the one giving out the tender.
My point is, EFCL is a layer of insulation that so far seems to be protecting government ministries from being sued for money. So the question goes back to what you asked. Where is EFCL going to find the 70 million to pay NH International? Can they even find it?
I don't know.
Right?
That's why I'm saying we
Or
hope,
will a further lawsuit now have to go
we hope that when,
the state entity can't pay, so the treasury will now have to be sued?
when NH International receives their funds, we hope we get notice on that. But to add a little twist to this entire story, we've been questioning what's going on with EFCL. From what we understand, they're just a shell company. It seems as though they're just a shell company.
Private business
and then you have
strategy.
These employees
To
not
defraud
being
people.
paid on time, not being paid on time, not being paid at all in some instances. So they don't even know where their futures lie. So in doing a bit of research, you can go to EFCL's website. It tells you everything about the company. It tells you about the chairman of the board members, and the executive management. EFCL.co.tt. The website was working perfectly well up to last year. The website is now down. The website is now not working at all.
They probably didn't have the small amount of
To maintain
money
the website?
for the fee to pay
Right.
for the domain. To
So now,
maintain
basically
it.
what it is that you can't tell just off of this who's the chairman, who are the board members, and who's the executive
I would like to
management.
remind the public that certain members of the executive, including the chairman of the board, I believe, they were contacted and they refused to comment on the situation. And lo and behold, as far as I'm aware, we have yet to hear anything from them, more or less ever.
And as far as we're also aware, they are still at the helm of EFCL, so we will be contacting them again for comments, and we will be welcoming them openly to Talking Point to have that discussion. More than welcome, but we will be contacting them and hoping that they can provide some answers. On top of that, you're right, Sean, I'm glad you mentioned this. We did contact them before. One individual answered. He stated, no, I'm not going to comment at this time, and calls to the other individual's phone. I believe the chairman did not answer. The CEO answered. He said, no, I'm not speaking at this point in time, and the chairman, while calls to his phone, went unanswered. We'll be trying again. Anyway, folks, the stories, the trials of EFCL and special purpose companies, well, that continues, and we will always bring light as to the latest happening with them. But for now, on Talking Point, we're going to take a break, and when we return, we welcome our commentator this morning for a bit of a discussion on post-pandemic, and then later on, we'll show you two clips and show you how the opposition and the government, the current government, are just basically the same side of a coin, no different than each other. We'll return after this.
Burning questions, urgent topics, welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Today, we're going to talk a little bit about diseases that affect the ear, nose, and throat.
For allergic rhinitis, the treatment is usually probably a nasal spray, antihistamine, even steam inhalation or saline washouts of the nose and so on. Patients always asking for antibiotics, and so the first line treatment is not antibiotics, just to clear that up.
I joined the Women's National Senior Football Team in one of their training sessions. And today I have with me Tamika Forbes, who is the gold star goalkeeper for the National Trinidad and Tobago Women's.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point. So alongside Mr. Sean Michael Small and myself, we have joining us via Zoom, Mr. Camille Pascal, former youth parliamentarian. Good morning, Camille.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton, and good morning to your viewers and listeners as well. It is my pleasure to be here on yet another Tuesday.
It is a pleasure to have you once more. Okay, Camille, let's get into the first topic. Yesterday in the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Boris Johnson indicated that as of today, as of this morning, all restrictions as it relates to COVID-19 in the United Kingdom will be lifted. Now, scientists as well as doctors have actually argued against this, stating that it's premature. Mr. Johnson says, well, we're going to have to learn to live with this and we're going to have to learn to work with this. I mean, mind you, since the start of the pandemic, he was quoting herd immunity. But is it premature? Because he is under political pressure, considering that he's currently under investigations for multiple parties and events held at number 10 Downing Street over the pandemic when restrictions were in place. So, Camille, starting with you, it's been, as I said, it's been stated that it's premature. But is it now that Mr. Johnson, Prime Minister Johnson, is he now trying to push forward with a way? And Trinidad and Tobago has taken many lessons from the United States and the United Kingdom throughout this pandemic and how we handle and treat with it. Could we see a similar thing happening down here?
I think we are far from that. If you look at how our government has been handling, well, I mean, they would have, when the pandemic would have first hit back in early 2020, and they would have put certain things into place, and then we had a an election, general election, August 2020, and you look at how they would have handled the pandemic from then to now, they have been very cautious in making restrictions and what they change, and in even to kind of loosen their hold on the population per se in terms of the restrictions that we have at present. So I think it's a matter of they would not be following suit very soon. They would actually wait to see how things change from the global perspective and even here regionally before they actually look at making any changes.
Sean, this is a topic that we actually got into yesterday, and just after talking point, the Prime Minister was addressing the Commons in which he made this particular announcement. He's also stating now that lateral flow tests, mandatory lateral flow tests, will come to an end on April 1st. This is a situation that I'm two minds about. Yes, I want to get out of the situation as quick as possible, but I don't necessarily want to force my way through it, because in the event that there could be another wave, and there's always that possibility, as our Attorney General pointed out, which by the way, he tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday. I wish him all the best in his recovery. But as the Attorney General pointed out, in following the science, there's no one way to deal with this pandemic. We don't know much, so we have to move precautiously.
I think that's the first thing. What Camille said there was correct. Looking at the other nations and seeing how it handles or how it unfolds there. They have larger populations too, so it's easier to get a lot of good information from their experience that could then translate to us. The US is also opening up. But interestingly enough, the AG just tested positive yesterday. A member of the Prime Minister's delegation to Qatar just tested positive, although that could have been due to traveling. We're not entirely sure if those cases are related. We can't say for any degree of certainty. So there are still cases. Hong Kong right now has a surge. They tried to have zero COVID, which meant that China's policies throughout the Olympics were actually quite strict. You could argue even too draconian with regards to trying to deal with a minor amount of cases, but it did not stop Hong Kong from exploding, relatively speaking. There are reports that I've read of people, middle-aged people or young, well, not young adults, but in their 30s and 40s, actually getting COVID at this stage. Healthy people, but they're unvaccinated and dying. Statistically, how many people is it? Are we talking about for it to be relevant to say we need to use this information to then know we have to stay locked down, use that to determine our public health measures? I'm not entirely sure. It could still be, more of a minority, or it could be a minority enough to say that, listen, at the end of the day, there will probably always be the risk of this coronavirus or another coronavirus flaring up. Always being the risk. So to wait for some degree of certainty that might never come might be a fool's errand, and we might just have to try to make our best guess.
Camille, bringing you back into the conversation, I often wonder now, yes, we're speaking about COVID-19, but let's look at it from a general perspective now. Is comparing Trinidad and Tobago in any sense to these first world nations, these developed nations, who have a much larger population, a much larger economy, and by that, the means and the facilities that are necessary to deal with such situations? Should we ever compare ourselves to them?
To an extent, yes, because we have done that and we are learning from their mistakes and the things that have worked for them. And so if you look at the state of California, for example, what the governor there, I think, is doing, he says they are going on the offensive against COVID instead of being defensive. So they have stockpiled a certain amount of mask testing capabilities. They have ramped up their testing capabilities and so forth because they know what plans they have for that particular state post-pandemic. And so I think it's important for us to look at the developing nations and even states within the US to determine how we go forward with our COVID-19 restrictions. However, if the Prime Minister is true to what he would have stated back in December 2021, when he had the address to the nation, he stated that they no longer intend to go back into lockdowns. Mm-hmm. And he's true to that statement. It means that we can actually see a further loosening, so to speak, in relation to the restrictions that we have here in Trinidad and Tobago. Over the weekend, we would have seen that the time for beaches, there's no longer time restriction on beaches. We have also seen the introduction of persons under the age of 12, children under the age of 12 being able to go into safe zone sites, restaurants, water parks, etc.
Camille, forgive me, you said all of that, but one point stuck in my mind in which you stated that the governor of California said we're going on the offensive, we're not going to be defensive, we're stockpiling masks. Isn't that in itself an issue associated with the pandemic, where these again, I see more developed nations with large economies, because that's just one state within the United States. Isn't there stockpiling, in a sense, one of the major downfalls of the pandemic, especially in relation to not only vaccines, but medical supplies, where developed nations and third world cannot access it equally, and therefore that in itself could cause another wave?
Yes and no. I wouldn't want to say no, because of the fact that there are still nations around the world who are yet to have access to vaccines to be able to vaccinate a good percentage of their population. However, if I were to say yes, it's because of the fact that it's a matter of, if I say yes, it's a matter of yes, because of the fact that countries, I should say, are still unable to have access, and then there are countries who have access and now they are stockpiling. But what about the countries who would like to move into the post-pandemic era and then they aren't able to, simply because of the fact that they can't do what, like, the state of California is doing? I don't know exactly what else the UK is doing, but in terms of looking at whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, I think it's a matter of us weighing out our risk and portioning accordingly going forward.
Sean, post-pandemic now, as we start to get into the conclusion of this conversation, is a larger economy with a bigger population, big economy, is that in itself a bit of a downfall in terms of post-pandemic? Is that going to lead to more negatives than positive as compared to a smaller nation such as Trinidad and Tobago with a small economy and less to manage?
Now, it all depends. First of all, California is like the 10th largest economy in the world. It's bigger than many countries just by itself. So that's a unique situation all on its own. But we could look to our neighbors. I think some of our smaller Caribbean neighbors, they actually had restrictions that we didn't have or we went away with a little bit longer, or in some cases they had a bit more stringent restrictions. I think one small island, it could be one of the English territories, Bermuda, I can't remember exactly, they actually required testing. Please don't quote me on a specific island. They required that their children returning to school were tested. I did not check to see if they...
I think this was announced yesterday, wasn't it?
Right, yes.
Yeah, that was Bermuda.
I didn't check to see if their students are vaccinated. But regardless, they need 100% testing. And if they're not tested, then, certain students will then have to undergo certain other procedures. So how we're managing it is based on our resources. Larger countries, of course, have resources. Smaller countries have to be more careful, not just because they don't have resources to throw at it now to be on the offensive, but because if it goes bad, like what's happening in Hong Kong now, how much more resources do we have left in reserve to deal with another wave? I mean, I think January's infection numbers weren't that much dissimilar to December. It's just that the deaths might not necessarily be the same. The severity of the disease might not necessarily be the same, but that's a recent thing. Is it going to hold? We don't know, but we kind of need it to hopefully hold, because the flip side is when you don't have resources, you can't stay in this pandemic mode indefinitely. We've said it already, you have to turn the corner, and we have to figure things out now. And the problem is the global situation is putting us on a further clock, because now that things get worse outside, we can't just kind of hope that the rest of the world stays together and the price of flour doesn't continue to go up and up and up while we're trying to figure out, how we're going to finish reopening and get all of our economy back running.
Camille, your closing remarks, and just to build off of what Sean stated, as things get worse or things get better outside, does that reflect upon internally what's taking place in Trinidad and Tobago?
To To an extent, yes, because I think it's, as I mentioned before, it's important for us to look at our regional and global partners and what they are doing and how they are treating with post-pandemic, so to speak. However, it's important that we weigh our risk and we determine what works for us. If you would recall, the Point Fortin Hospital has now been removed from the list of hospitals used to treat COVID-19 patients. So it says that the government rather, is moving towards kind of back to normal to an extent, but it still means that we must be careful because an outbreak could spell death once again, similarly to what we would have had over the last couple of months.
Well, folks, so what does the post-pandemic have in store for Trinidad and Tobago? Well, I suppose we shall see. There's so many factors to consider, but as it stands, we were mentioning just before the discussion very briefly how what's taking place out in Russia and Ukraine right now between those two nations. I mean, the price of Brent crude went up to over $99 a barrel, which is astounding. The markets yesterday closed with most major markets seeing a dip in their prices. I'm not sure what it opened at this morning.
Might go up by the end of today?
It might. So there's a lot of other factors external to Trinidad and Tobago that actually affect internally. Anyway, let's take a break on the program. When we return this morning, we're going to show you exactly how the United National Congress and the People's National Movement, though one is in opposition and the other one is at the helm of government, they're just basically the same face of one coin. Stay tuned.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Kemuel, Pascal, Sean Michael Small, this morning we're taking a look at the National Security Minister, whom I am very much admirable of, Fitzgerald Hines. I hope you picked up on that, Sean. Kemuel, I don't know, but anyway, we're also taking a look at...
I prefer his deputy better.
We're also taking a look at Opposition Senator Anil Roberts. We're looking at those two individuals. It's a war of those two individuals because last week during the Senate, I was observing the National Security Minister in his responses, and he never fails to surprise you in terms of how he comes across in terms of his response and his anecdotes and just exactly himself as an individual. But then at the same time, Anil Roberts popped up at the virtual Monday Night Forum last week, Monday, and again, it was absolutely no surprise. And these individuals are often critical of each other and each other's parties. And I realized, hold on, they're trying to correct one another, they're trying to campaign, they're trying to show the people of Trinidad and Tobago, this is why you should not vote for this individual, they're wrong, they're strong, and at the same time, we're just basically a splitting image of each other. What do we mean by that? Well, first, let's take a look at the Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hinds, in Senate last week.
Madam President, in light of the murders of prison officers, can the minister indicate, Madam President, what measures are being taken to bring some degree of security, safety, and protection to those prison officers who are exposed to the criminal elements based on what the minister has advanced?
Senator Mark, that question is not allowed.
Madam President, can the minister indicate whether the government intends to embark upon measures aimed at restoring that compensation package for prison officers who are killed or who die on or during their duties or carrying out their duties? Read this $1 million arrangement. Can the minister indicate whether there are any efforts to look at this matter?
Minister.
Madam President, the question is rather soft and convoluted, reflecting, Madam President, some similarity between my colleague's hairstyle and his internal capacities.
No,
but Madam President.
Senator, Minister, Senator Mark, are you? Minister, please, let us not be personalizing matters. Let's just answer the question, okay?
Madam President, the policy as established since 2016 is quite clear. It says, in effect, that where an officer is killed in the execution of his duty, the compensation is made available to his legal personal representative upon proof thereof. It's particularly clear.
Now, if you have a very good sense of humor, initially you would have laughed at that. But then you go back to the fact that this is something that is occurring all the time, and then you start to stop laughing. I mean, fortunately, the President of the Senate, Christine Kanglu, was far greater in executing her responsibilities as head of the Senate rather than the Speaker of the Parliament, Bridget Anizet George, in terms of actually correcting the minister and basically stating, let us not do this, let us not encourage this. So the minister then answered the question. Camille, Sean, I mean, perhaps we laughed because we do have a sense of humor, but isn't this rather annoying and frustrating now that this is still the level of politics that we're seeing within our parliament? You're supposed to mix laughter with seriousness, you're supposed to make things light, but at the same time, in these times and with the issues that we're facing, is it now just becoming a bore and just honestly not needed?
What I would say is sometimes a light moment is needed in the scheme of things. However, I think what we have seen from the period 2015, the behavior of both government and opposition MPs from period 2015 to present has been abhorrent in many different ways. There are many clips that you can pull up and look back at from then till now in relation to the behavior of members of parliament, both members in the House and also senators in the Senate.
Sean, devil's advocate?
Well, all I will say is that both parties were a little bit guilty. Obviously, the Minister of National Security and his words were uncalled for, right? And that was the greater issue in the grand scheme of things. Senator Markey tried to throw in a little bubble, but, you know, he was course corrected and he, without any fuss, he modified his line of questioning. That's fine. That's fine. But what was interesting was that the Senate President had to basically quiet him so she could defend him from the remarks of the Minister of National Security. So even when she is trying to admonish a government minister, she still has to deal a little bit also with the desire of an opposing politician to kind of get his word in to the argument.
Well, speaking about an opposing politician who always tries to get his word in and does not care how he does it, when he does it, and to whom he interrupts to get that done, let us introduce the first clip of Anna Roberts at last Monday's UNC's virtual forum.
Did he spend his own money or did he take your taxpayers' money to buy other man wife roses on Valentine's Day? Because in the PNM now, there's a committee of husbands of those who have been horned by Keith Christopher Rowley. Because to get a walk, to get a cabinet position, to get a UDCOT CEO, to be a UTC CEO, you have to pass thing by the man who runs this country on pum-pum governance. And it must end. It must end now. So I am sorry. I love and respect Sharon. God bless you. You deserve the Order of Merit of Trinidad and Tobago for putting up with that for so long. But I ask Rowley, Vasan PNM, and Botiwari PNM, if a principal is harassing a child, sexually abusing a child and touching a child, do we leave the principal to save the institution? Or do we get rid of the principal, report them to the authorities and put them where they belong? Well, Vasant, Bo, and Rowley, y'all do the opposite. Y'all promote somebody like that to be prime minister. Because in 1969, we all know what Keith Rowley did as a teacher, getting sexual favors from a girl of school age, producing a child and throw him in on the outside. But Vasant and Bo, you promote that and you support that. Good for you, not here in the UNC.
And now you understand why we here on Talking Point do not pay much attention to the opposition, because this is basically their argument against the government. And quite frankly, I'll take the opposition seriously. But I can't, because he says we like that and this is who we promote. But Anna Roberts, the only reason why you still have any sense of a political position is because Auntie Cams, the mother of the nation, as you so put her, put you back there. Honestly, I cannot believe that you still have a place of position, but then maybe she's running out of allies. Kemuel?
So, firstly, I'm going to be very careful on how I comment on this, owing to the nature of it and the allegations that were made in it. And I want to question whether or not the persons named within the video would have seen the video and what actions they would have taken, because to me, it's clearly defamatory. And so I would just be very careful. But I think that's kind of where we've reached in our politics, and it's ridiculous that that just passed on a political platform and we're just normal with that. It's ridiculous to say the least.
Kemuel, you have Sean falling off his seat here. Sean?
So first off, as much as I have questioned the Minister of National Security, let me be the first to apologize lumping him in with that. With that said, this kind of statement with regards to politics, the Minister of National Security, he went after his political opponent. This now is insinuating far more beyond Mr. Roberts' political opponents. And I would just like to remind him that when he opens that door, his own political leader has rumors against her that could be thrown out there on a political platform in order to continue to disparage her. So don't complain if they get caught in the mud too.
Very quickly, as we conclude, we're going to play the last video and then it'll go straight into News on the Hour here on WSN. But this last video is basically a campaign on the part of Anna Roberts. I can tell you, sir, that in the current state and form, the United National Congress honestly does not have much of a chance. They are unelectable. They are no different to the government. In fact, they're probably worse than the current government. Well, I guess you can mix and match some of them anyway. But at the same time, Anna Roberts, nobody voted for Kamala in 2015. Nobody voted for her in 2020. Sir, just be happy and feel privileged that you're getting a paying position. Let's take a look at this clip and go straight into News on the Hour.
It must sweep down through the Southland, San Fernando West. It must strip that tight pants wearing dishonest Porsche sailor and building renter out of San Fernando and all the way down to La Brea. It must be a tsunami of righteousness to bring Kamala back, Persad Bissessar back to the job that she deserves. Cheaters must not prosper. We are a fair people. We are an honest people. We are a loving people. And when a woman like Kamala performed with cabinet notes and heart and soul, and she showed you love every day of the year, for every day that she was prime minister, you cannot compare that to the evil of the Lekoto Jambi, a man who would boast about putting spells on another human being to make them sick. What sort of human being did you work for? What sort of human being did you vote for?
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the Hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
It must sweep down through the Southland, San Fernando West. It must strip that tight pants wearing dishonest Porsche sailor and building renter out of San Fernando and all the way down to La Brea. It must be a tsunami of righteousness to bring Kamala back, Persad Bisesa back to the job that she deserves. Cheaters must not prosper. We are a fair people. We are an honest people. We are a loving people. And when a woman like Kamala performed with cabinet notes and heart and soul, and she showed you love every day of the year, for every day that she was prime minister, you cannot compare that to the evil of the Lekoto Jambi, a man who would boast about putting spells on another human being to make them sick.
A righteous, honest people. Kamala deserves that job. I'm sorry, sir. Kamala does not deserve that job. Honest people, I'm sorry, what happened to live sport?
I have to get this out. I am no fan of Faris as the AG, but to say that you cannot compare him to your political leader with regards to certain ethical considerations, I find that very interesting. Get evidence. Evidence on what has happened, and then we could say it cannot be compared.
We are an honest people. Okay, section 34. We are righteous. Right. Okay, great. Kamala is deserving. Hello? Really? I mean, Anna Roberts, who are you fooling yourself? Anyway. Welcome back to Talking Point. Let's open up the phone lines now where you can have your say. 623-9376, 622-9338. Call in and join us on Talking Point. Good morning, caller from Pitty Valley.
Morning, Sean and Keaton.
Good morning.
I'm Camille.
Before I speak, after I said what I have to say, I'd like anyone to call in, any caller, and debate what I have to say. In them two clips, one picking other opponent hairstyle, and that's our opponents. If you want to say distasteful, okay. The other one, no. You going into a prime minister wife, and Anil Roberts is giving his wife advice and telling him about his sexual this and that and talking about the prime minister wife. No. You have a line with your wife and your children in politics. No. Those two clips. No. I am appalled. Yeah. And look, have a nice day.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you. You can hear the anger in the caller's voice.
I know exactly what that caller means, because you could say the prime minister bullies and he bullies the people and all. The prime minister doesn't say things like that.
But you know what's so sad?
Even the worst things the prime minister said.
Anna Roberts,
as far as I can remember recently, it's not like that.
Anna Roberts refers to Kamala as the mother of the nation. And he's condemning Rowley for this and that and the other. But the mother of the nation is allowing Anna Roberts to say this on a political platform.
Yes.
She's allowing Anna Roberts to stand up there and talk to the nation like this. I can't believe it.
Or she was the speaker after him.
She was. Good morning, caller from Claxton Bay.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, you know, it is so sad, but I think this morning, I'll do some justice. I'll really bring it to light, and this is what we need on our platform. We need people to not to be saying that the opposition is not relevant. They are relevant and important today. But if they are saying the things that they're saying, we need to let the population and especially people who supporting them know, hey, you see these people, they don't make sense. Them are not for country. Them is just all about power, all about the self, and all about the service to this country. And we must deal with the matter. These are things that we really need to deal with so that the population could have an opportunity to make a proper decision in 2022 here as we go along, as we want to go forward for the future, for the generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. I agree 100% with most of what you said.
They are relevant and important today, and we believe the opposition is. However,
the opposition is relevant and important because they're showing you exactly what you do not want to be and what you do not want.
I wouldn't even go there. The institution, the party, it's important. There's an important function. That's not how you do it.
Good morning, caller from Santa Cruz.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Keaton, Sean, Camuel.
Good morning.
I am appalled at what I just heard.
Yeah.
Totally. Now, first, I was calling to remark on the need for contractors. Why does public utilities hire out their maintenance? But that's a whole other story, because that is pure foolishness. Because when you hire a contractor, they simply work on specifically what you've asked them to work on. So if they hired to work on 2 poles and pole number 3 has a rope or a wire hanging from it, because they weren't hired to work on pole number 3, they'll only fix poles 1 and 2. And then you'll have to send back for them. That is not maintenance. That is pure foolishness. But these clips that you just showed, first off, well, with the setup, and Sean may have remembered me saying something about setting up a scene, with words, and then I'm expecting to see the minister, and I see the senator who drains my energy with his delivery. But nonetheless, the Minister of Security and his picong, which was definitely not called for, but okay, the Madam President put it in order.
Yeah, she did.
But the lack of character and integrity that showed from Anil Roberts' mouth has me shaking.
Yeah.
How could anyone, how could people even want to vote for someone that has that kind of character to say those kind of nasty things? That has absolutely nothing to do with what are you going to do for my country.
Thank you. Absolutely, yes, thank you very much.
I'll stop there.
Thank you,
Thank
caller.
you. Thank you.
Quick, I don't know if Camille, you want to get a word in before we take the next call. Quick.
Sure, the caller is absolutely right. She is correct. It has nothing to do with country building, nothing at all. It's simply ridiculous.
Well, is it just, do they see their pollution as a solution? I don't know. Good morning, caller from Chagones. Good morning, Professor.
I agree totally with your last call about contracts. The government used to do their own work, and only with exceptional things you will give out contracts. today they would give out contracts even for painting a hump, right? And the whole reason is to make a 30% kickback, right? Nobody investigates this, nobody does. And it's the whole reason for what you talk about this morning, special purpose companies. Special purpose companies were originally for activities which could be better managed by non-traditional public service systems. For example, utilities, factories, manufacturers, airports, companies, and so forth.
Yeah.
Today, they are created to evade scrutiny.
It would seem so.
Yes. Do not even carry out the special purpose system. They give it out on contract.
That's probably their special
purpose.
purpose.
Done by the parent ministry at by far lesser cost and with greater expertise because they have it there. The worst that we have seen is the latest, our revenue authority. Our revenue authority is the oldest activity of government. Right? And there is nothing a revenue authority can do that the Board of Inland Revenue couldn't do. It's just the government prevent them from collecting the revenue. And that is why they have contract officers and all these things. So if they don't carry out the dictates of the political directorate, they are sent home. Today, most of the good ones, like WASA and TNTech and all these things, have been destroyed by government. We have seen what they have done with WASA. Even when WASA tried to collect the revenue, they stopped them. You had the head of the board sabotaging TFCT by buying a useless company. And right now, most of the phones in that agency do not work at all and nothing being doing. And the latest we have seen now is coming with TNTech. What people don't understand, the reason for TNTech is the same thing, giving out all the generation to private companies, and there all the money going, and TNTech do not have the money to do their part. Any questions, gentlemen? As usual.
Have a great day, Professor.
Thank you,
Good
Professor.
hearing from you.
Thank
you keep well. Hear from you again tomorrow.
Special purpose companies that don't even carry out their purpose.
No.
I like that line.
Their purpose, as the professor alluded to, is to evade scrutiny.
No, and it's true. It's true. You don't hear great corruption at Ministry of X. When is the last time you heard scandal at a ministry where the permanent secretary was siphoning off money? No, it is the CEO of a special purpose company.
I haven't heard a scandal to that degree.
It is the chairman of
I've heard scandals coming out of the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, but that's a different kind of scandal.
You asked me one time.
No, but the money, where does the money go? Sport, special purpose company. EFCL, special purpose company. You know? WASA, TNTech, special purpose companies. We have money problems, cash flow problems, work's not being done. So it's true.
Camille, your thoughts?
On EFCL particularly, I don't know if you all heard that there was a judgment yesterday that they have been ordered to pay NH International $17 million for work carried out at Poverty Girls in 2013. Yeah, I heard that on the news this morning. So
we were actually discussing that on Talking Point this morning, just before you joined us. But we do have a call on the line from El Socorro. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I just wanted to refer to the funeral of the young Venezuelan baby. If I read this correctly, the mother was not allowed to attend the funeral of a dead child. I mean, I find that so heartless, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I mean, oh God, boy. I mean, I am absolutely speechless. I mean, if this lady or woman was, I think she couldn't have been a flight risk. I mean, policemen or policewomen could have accompanied her to the funeral. I mean, can you imagine what is going through this lady's heart? How can we be so heartless, man?
Yeah.
Oh my God, man. Oh Lord. Gosh, we reach, man. We really reach, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. I mean, I didn't necessarily want to get into that topic. There's so much that we don't know. However, if the funeral is on our soil, who is it for? Not the family members. That's the mother. What is the point of the exercise? What's the point of the whole thing?
I still can't believe that.
And at the end, I still contend that if it is properly investigated, I suspect you will find some areas where it might not necessarily be criminally negligent on the Coast Guard sailors, but there could be things where you could have some blame, where they could have had different decisions, they could have made different choices, and the baby might not have died because of it. Because at the end, the baby didn't pull out a 9mm and shoot the Coast Guard.
Good morning, caller from Claxton Bay.
Morning, Sean. Morning, Ethan.
Morning, Mr. Fisherman.
Morning. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
I just want to say from your political point, because I really don't want the guys in, like, Anna and these fellas in them, and I'd like to really how they go about themselves as a politician, you know.
Uh-huh.
But mine's on the two guys from Erin side where they say the boat swam and one is missing.
Mm-hmm.
These guys in them is runners and yeah, I know what I'm telling you. They was bringing a boatload of honey, let me tell you. They went for a boatload of honey.
A boatload of honey?
Yeah, honey. They bringing honey trading.
Uh-huh.
And what happened, they put in the boat, they overload the boat. And honey is a heavy thing.
Oh, Lord.
Now, if you bring in honey in the barrels, right? I'm just telling you.
Uh-huh.
And with them swell, that boat tilts, and the boat could rock on one side, you don't have it pick up properly.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
What happened.
Yeah.
So they were trading. So
Oh,
fishermen carry bad name. Everybody goes and something happen, the ball fishermen.
Mm.
You understand?
Yeah.
That's my point. Guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Fisherman.
brother.
Good hearing from you. Good hearing. I'm so
Yes.
sorry about the circumstances, but I hope they find the fisherman. But I mean, how many times we need to say it? People need to look after themselves. People,
On the sea.
Generally, but yes, on the sea.
Or in the water.
623-9376, 622-9338. I want to go back a little bit now to the point in relation to Anna Roberts. And I am questioning how it is this individual was made an opposition senator.
Right, he wasn't elected. He was appointed.
How was he appointed as an opposition? How is he there? Why is he there? What purpose did he serve? Because Kamala really is running out of allies and really running out of reasons anyway. Good morning, caller from Jacob Martin.
Morning.
Time. I'm sorry, I'm in a parallel universe this morning. So as I watched most of the games, I kept thinking if an alien was looking at the camaraderie and unity of those phenomenal athletes, they would really think we were insane, because there was Russia, China, US, everyone in harmony.
Yeah.
Russians did a ring of roses in the closing ceremony, but all oblivious to this impending war.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had, like, hours later, Putin went back into history, blaming Lenin, saying that Ukraine is ancient Russian lands. So now he's recognized the separatist pro-Moscow regions of Donetsk and Luhansk. In eastern Ukraine, there where we're seeing the troops. And the thing is, Biden, Boris, Macron, Scholz, everyone had talks. And they saw there was no sign of de-escalation. They kept saying they will impose sanctions, but of course they're waiting. So now UK has imposed financial and individual sanctions. They're going to go on to trade and misinformation and all of that, as all the rest of them. They continue to talk of his subjugation of a sovereign state and their continued support, while he's doing just what Nazi Germany did to Poland in 1939. You know, they saw there was no sign of de-escalation for so long. The man had 150,000 troops on the border and just chilling.
Yeah.
You know?
And that costs a
now
lot of
they're
money.
saying history will judge Putin and the West. He's just afraid of democracy, not of NATO, not of anyone else, and we're just waiting. That's all.
Well,
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
I'll respond off air. I think that Putin was rightfully afraid of NATO because if Ukraine was in NATO, then by treaty, there would have been a greater legal need for the NATO members to actually come to the defense of Ukraine and the annexation.
Well, the whole point of NATO was to, well, in terms of security against Russia, to try and curb Russia's influence and control. Good morning, caller from Marval. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, you're live.
You're live, don't listen to the TV.
Okay, listen, I'm wondering when you would
put Rowley on to show the public his disparaging remarks in regard to Kamala, calling Roger dotish, telling Kamala, hold your so-and-so, go and drink your rum, mentioning to the public, kiss me ass, excuse me. I mean, balance, there should be some balance in what you're saying.
Well,
Don't you think?
We try our very best to bring a balance. That's why we had the video of the Minister of National Security before.
Okay,
but in future, we will always put two sides out there.
First thing, when were those comments made?
Correct. Exactly.
Excuse me?
When were those comments
did
made?
the Prime Minister make those comments?
All right, caller, you need to turn on the volume of the television.
What I'm saying, when you have public servants, especially in the capacity of a prime minister, making those remarks, disparaging remarks about members of the public, calling his opposition imps, we have to take note. This is a downward departure from what I should say, decorous governance.
We understand that, but there's a difference between calling a political opponent an imps, and you could argue a union leader also is a political opponent right now. There's a difference between that and calling out the sexual misconduct or proclivities of a political opponent. Calling out the person's family matters, whether it is true or not.
No, but you don't bring your family at all into
right?
this.
So that's a whole different level of argument.
So, caller, I understand what you're asking in terms of a balance, but when the Prime Minister referred to these Labour leaders as dotish, when he referred to the opposition as imps, when he made all these comments, we were very, very quick to condemn him. Perhaps we didn't show the footage, but we did. We were very, very quick to condemn him. We were very quick to criticize him. And as I said, we tried to bring a balance, but you never bring your wife or your family matter.
With your display this morning, you weren't balanced.
No, but
you didn't see
the
the video
balance
before?
the balance was, this is recent. Both of these situations happened last week. That's why we're comparing them.
Regardless of the time factor within which these comments occurred. Listen, it doesn't matter. We're talking about the content here.
All right.
And another thing too. Anil Roberts is a very brilliant attorney. So when he makes these comments, he's mindful of libel. He is not making these comments as he's some loose cannon or anything like that. These are well thought out comments that he's making. Rowley telling Kamala to go and
thank you, caller. Thank you. Have a good day. And please refrain from using such language on air.
So I will say, even calling Kamala a drunk, it said that she was called a drunk, that is still a direct personal attack against Kamala.
Hold on.
Right? If you're going to even resort to personal attacks, do it to your opponent. Don't go now to your opponent.
You are free to have your political thoughts and you are free to express your opinion, but if you think that Anil Roberts is very brilliant and he's mindful and whatnot and not a loose cannon, I don't know what your definition of brilliant or loose cannon is. I'm so sorry. Good morning, caller from Diggo Martin. Last caller for the morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'll be brief because I don't really have much time. All I have to say that now, gentlemen, two wrongs will make a right.
Thank you.
And the fact is that he's calling Roberts a brilliant man. Well, thank God. I don't know what world he's living in, but that's why I serve him on politics and all his confrontations.
Yeah.
Thank God I don't get myself involved in those things.
Yeah.
Thank you and good morning.
Have a good day, caller. Thank you very much. Camille, I saw you agree. The same thing came through my mind when he was stating this. Two wrongs don't make a right. He seemed like we weren't balanced.
Correct, exactly.
Clearly, he didn't
and
see
I'm
the
glad
video.
that you asked the question, when did that take place? Because I'm sure you all would have addressed instances of that when it took place. If you look back at October when they brought the motion to against the president, and you look at the behavior, I'm sure you all would have addressed the opposition's behavior and also the government's behavior, even though
very much so.
Well behaved
we have always done that, Camille, and that's the thing. Yes, the caller is saying it doesn't matter at the time. We showed a video I was very, very mindful when doing this to show the video of the Minister of National Security and the video of the opposition senator. We showed both sides. We have condemned and criticized the Prime Minister in the past, but that does not mean that we can't do the same for the opposition now.
Let's put it
correct. And as you mentioned, and IMS and IMS and Collins and speaking about someone's wife and what allegedly happened back however long has nothing to do with that. That's just like a whole other level. That's totally unacceptable.
So we know that the Prime Minister made statements in the past like I am not in your bedroom, or about the golf course comment, right? Now, we weren't on air at that time. He was rightfully criticized. If he said something like that now, we will criticize that now. We will play that now. We will definitely show that now. But he hasn't said that now. Maybe he's learned. And there are a lot of people in the UNC who I rather hear from than Anna Roberts, who obviously has not learned. And if that is the level of political discourse you're relying to get re-elected, I'm sorry. But either you're not going to get elected, or if you do, I have to really question the priority of some people.
But adding to that, Anna Roberts, God, it's just so much. It's so much.
Now, to be fair, this is the take of the caller that has reinvigorated the emotions here.
Anna Roberts, I'm so sorry, sir. I feel sorry for you. You have to bring somebody's wife and... anyway, sir,
Because he can't debate issues.
Sir, the opposition, folks, this just shows you the opposition is no solution to what they're criticizing. They're their own worst enemy. Forget about them. That's it for Talking Points. I have to close. Sean, thank you very much. Camille, thank you very much. Please stay safe and be well.
Thank you.
We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.